Welcome back to Celluloid Circuits, the podcast where we log into the ways technology shapes and warps the movies we watch. I'm Anthony, and today we're booting up The Net, a 1995 thriller that imagined what would happen if your entire life was online and someone hit delete. Let's set the scene. It's 1995. Windows 95 is about to drop. AOL CDs are cluttering your mailbox. The information superhighway is the phrase of the year. Most people have barely heard of the internet, and fewer still understand it. And then comes along The Net, starring Sandra Bullock as Angela Bennett, one of cinema's first fully online protagonists. Angela's job? She's a freelance software analyst who works entirely remotely, debugging code, beta testing programs, and communicating exclusively via chat rooms and encrypted mail. Her entire life, including her personal life, is digital. She orders food online, gets her prescriptions through anonymous services, and lives in digital solitude. Today, we call that working from home. But in 1995, it was borderline sci-fi. Angela's tech stack may look dated now: bulky CRT monitor, mechanical keyboard, a modem that makes that glorious screeching handshake, but it's surprisingly functional for its time. Her tools include a dial-up modem for internet access. She has online ordering systems. She orders pizza online before these apps existed. And of course, she uses private chat rooms and messaging boards, think early versions of BBS and IRC. Angela's character isn't just tech savvy. She's practically a prototype for the ultra-connected remote worker. But the film treats her lifestyle with suspicion, implying that her dependence on digital tools isolates her and makes her uniquely vulnerable. And in the lens of this film, it kind of does. At the core of the story is Gatekeeper, a cybersecurity program that turns out to be anything but secure. This program, created by a corporation with shadowy motives, it's actually a Trojan horse, granting hackers full access to every system that it quote-unquote protects. You've probably heard the phrase Trojan horse before, maybe in a history class or from some gritty war movie, but in the world of hacking, it's not about ancient Greece. It's about deception. Though the inspiration is from Greek history and the story of the said Trojan horse, so in this case, a Trojan horse, or just Trojan, is a type of malicious software that disguises itself as something harmless, maybe even helpful. It might look like a free game, a system update, or a friendly email attachment, but once you let it in, that's where the real payload drops. Hackers use Trojans to open backdoors, steal data, or take control of a machine without the user even realizing that they invited the intruder in. It's not brute force, it's theater. It's social engineering wrapped in code. A classic case of the enemy being welcomed past the gates because it looked like a gift. Or in this case, a usable benign executable. When Angela discovers this hidden backdoor, the conspiracy begins. Her identity is wiped. Her life is rewritten. She becomes a ghost. The premise where a trusted security system becomes the very thing that compromises safety was a sharp insight for the time, and it eerily foreshadows real-world scenarios. For example, the SolarWinds breach, where hackers accessed US systems via trusted software. Stuxnet, which we've gone over before, it was a virus that looked like a legitimate Windows driver. And then of course there's IoT exploits, where smart home devices are turned into surveillance tools. Imagine your smart home, the lights, the thermostat, even your security cameras, all connected and working seamlessly to make your life easier. But what if those very devices turned against you? In 2016, a massive attack called the Mirai botnet hijacked thousands of unsecured IoT devices, like smart cameras and routers, and turned them into a digital army. These devices, meant to keep your home safe and cozy, were commandeered to flood websites with traffic, knocking those websites offline. But beyond just causing chaos, the attack exposed a darker possibility. What if hackers could quietly tap into those devices to watch and listen? It's like in a sci-fi thriller where your own gadgets become spies inside your house, capturing every move and whisper without you ever noticing. That's the real-world nightmare lurking behind the convenience of IoT. Our future homes turning into surveillance zones controlled by unseen intruders. Or in the case of Amazon buying the robot vacuum company, they weren't buying it for the robots. They're buying it because the company had the layouts of everyone's home. That data is what they were after. And not all hacking is someone sitting in front of a computer in a dark room. But hacking can take on the form of physical exploits as well. Devices with microphone inputs for home assistants such as Alexa, Google, etc. can be triggered remotely from a distance with a laser pointed at the device. The laser is modulated to vibrate the air above the microphone input. And what are sound waves? Vibrations in the air. These bad actors can ask your Alexa or other home assistant to perform actions as if they were in the room physically speaking to it. And the scary thing is they are vibrating the mics as if they received the command, but there is no audible cues to know that this is happening. Gatekeeper is fictional, but the risks it represents, invisible control through trusted systems, is very real. The scariest part of the net isn't the hacking. It's how quickly your life can be changed at the drop of a hat, or in this case with a few keystrokes. Angela's home is sold, her credit card stopped working, her name is replaced in every database with a fabricated identity. Even the police believe the computers over her word, as in the case when the bad actors give her a criminal history. In 1995, this was pure thriller fantasy. But today with massive databases running everything from our finances to our faces, the film feels downright prophetic. Victims of identity theft now face real consequences: credit destruction, legal accusations, job loss, and even arrests based on incorrect data. Angela's erasure shows us how fragile our modern identities can be when they exist almost entirely as database entries. In the net, the dangers of living in a digital world are front and center, especially how our own personal data can be weaponized. And this is where the real-world tech giant Palantir Technologies comes into play. Palantir builds powerful data analytics platforms designed to sift through massive, complex databases, making sense of seemingly disconnected pieces of information. Originally developed to support intelligence agencies and law enforcement, their software can uncover patterns, track movements, and even predict behaviors by mining vast amounts of personal data. This kind of database surveillance is exactly what the net warns about: a world where your digital identity isn't just a collection of facts, but a web of tracked interactions, scrutinized and controlled. Palantir's technology embodies this modern reality, one where governments or corporations can comb through databases to monitor individuals, sometimes blurring the line between security and the invasion of privacy. In the net, Angela Bennett's identity is erased and replaced by a digital ghost, highlighting the terrifying power of these systems to manipulate and erase people's lives. Palantir's tools represent the real-world counterpart: powerful, precise, and often invisible systems capable of reconstructing or dismantling identities through data. This connection drives home the film's core warning: our data, stored in databases and surveilled by sophisticated platforms like Palantir's, can become both a weapon and a prison in this digital age. So let's do a quick audit of the net's big ideas. So a concept: online-only lifestyle. In 1995, rare, but it can happen. Today, everywhere. It's totally commonplace. How about email encryption? Very niche. Not many people used it in 95. It's still not even used that much today. How about backdoor access to critical systems? Well, in 1995, it was very unlikely at scale, but today, it's totally possible. Just think the SolarWinds hacked. And then, of course, the graphical hacking interfaces that all these movies have. 1995, Hollywood fantasy. Now, still fantasy. So what are some themes and takeaways from this film? I mean, let's dig into what the net is really trying to say beneath its 90s tech aesthetic. I mean, there's this isolation that we see in a connected world. Angela's life is paradoxical. She's hyperconnected to data streams and networks, but profoundly isolated from human relationships. Her dependence on technology replaces face-to-face interaction with screens, chat rooms, and anonymous messaging boards. This theme foreshadows the modern epidemic of loneliness amplified by digital life, which has only been exacerbated due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The film warns us that technology, while designed to bring people together, can also create a fragile shell of connection that lacks emotional depth or support of real-world bonds. And while I'm not saying that your online friends can't be your friends or that they're not your friends, Because they are. And I've seen many stories of people getting together online and that's who they know. And some people are okay with that. But I mean, consider how social media often leads to curated, shallow interactions, and even how remote work, even post-pandemic, can reduce spontaneous human contact. Angela's isolation makes her vulnerable to attack. Angela's isolation makes her vulnerable to attack precisely because she has no offline support to catch her when she falls. For example, the neighbor that lives right next to her who doesn't recognize her and can't verify that she owns this house because she's really very rarely seen her. The lesson here is twofold. Technology can be empowering, but it can also alienate, and our digital lives must be balanced with real-world connections, or we risk becoming invisible and powerless. The net centers on the tension between users' trust and corporate control. Gatekeeper is marketed as a security solution, yet it hides malicious code. This duality reflects a broader anxiety about who really controls the digital infrastructure we rely on. Today, we entrust tech giants and software vendors with vast amounts of personal data, and with access to critical systems like healthcare, finance, and even democracy itself with these voting machines. The film invites us to question the assumptions we make about these entities' benevolence and competence, and it really anticipates modern concerns such as the opaque algorithms deciding what information we get to see, the oversized power these companies have to surveil and monetize user data, and the vulnerability of trusted software that can be exploited or sabotaged. Ultimately, the net challenges viewers to ask, when we install software or sign terms of service, what are we really agreeing to? Because I can tell you most people do not read those terms and services. It warns us that blind trust in technology is risky and perhaps maybe even reckless. In a world where backdoors and hidden agendas can turn tools of empowerment into weapons of control, and this is oddly prescient, as it's reported that Microsoft just disabled the email address of the lead prosecutor of the International Criminal Court after they were seeking war crime charges against Israel's attack on Iran and Gaza. Even if this is not true, and it comes out to be factually false, this leads to the debate. If we are reliant on these organizations to provide these services, how do we maintain control when it's the company who owns the infrastructure and the software? One of the film's most haunting ideas is that identity isn't fixed or innate. It's data, scattered across databases controlled by institutions. Angela's erasure is devastating because it severs her from every record that validates her existence. This theme strikes at the heart of modern identity politics and digital sovereignty. In a world where financial services, employment, voting rights, and legal protections increasingly depend on digital identity verification, losing access to those records can mean losing access to basic human rights. The net taps into fears about facial recognition false positives, algorithmic errors that misidentify or discriminate against individuals. Cities like Detroit and San Francisco have documented cases where facial recognition technology wrongly identified Black men as suspects in crimes that they didn't commit. These errors have led to wrongful arrests and highlight how algorithmic bias can distort someone's digital record, just as Angela's identity was corrupted in the net. I mean, just something simple as credit scoring mistakes. Automated credit scoring systems sometimes flag people for risky behavior based on data correlations that didn't actually apply, like living in certain zip codes, working in gig economy jobs, which ends up denying them opportunities for loans or homes. It shows how our digital profile can be quietly weaponized against us. And then everyone knows nowadays that all companies are using some type of screening tool for their applicants. Algorithms scan resumes and can reject candidates because of keywords or inferred gaps, potentially locking people out of jobs, which is really a form of quiet, automated discrimination. One of the other fears is how data breaches expose our personal information to malicious actors. For example, the Equifax breach of 2017, which exposed the sensitive data of 147 million people, including their social security numbers and birth dates. This data could easily be used to create false identities and ruin credit. And most of the time, when you see a data breach, because the United States is so lax, it's usually Oh, we're sorry. Here's a year of identity monitoring for free. All the controversy with Cambridge Analytica and Facebook. Well, technically not a breach in hacking sense. This personal data was misused and was harvested and exploited to influence elections, showing how easy it is for personal profiles to be weaponized. And then all these recent attacks on healthcare systems. All these attacks on hospital databases like the Anthem breach leak sensitive medical records, opening people up to insurance fraud or blackmail, the sort of personal issues that could upend someone's life, much like Angela's erased medical history in the film. I mean, the rise of synthetic identities and deepfakes that blur truth and fiction. Synthetic identities, especially now with AI, used for fraud. Fraudsters create new identities by combining real and fake data, like using one person's social security number with another's name and birth date. Then they build credit profiles that seem real, and these identities can live undetected in financial systems for years. We've seen them everywhere now. Deepfake videos of public figures. Deepfakes have fabricated videos of anybody, saying things that they never did or placing them in compromising situations. It's really a modern echo of the net's plot where manipulated records change reality, only now, instead of text, it's video evidence. And obviously with the rise of AI, this is just becoming more and more commonplace, and it's coming along with voice cloning scams. Attackers clone someone's voice, often gathering that data from social media posts, to call family members and pretend they've been kidnapped or in need of urgent money. The film has us confront a very uncomfortable truth. In the digital age, identity is fragile. It's a fragile construct. Its preservation depends on the integrity and security of the systems that hold it, and on the vigilance of those who govern these systems. Back again to those big tech giants. And I mean, just the simple cost of convenience and the illusion of control in this film. Angela's life is built around convenience. Instant access to food, work, social connection. But the net reveals that convenience often masks a loss of control. Every digital convenience, be it auto login passwords, cloud storage, or smart devices, relies on trusting layers of infrastructure that most people rarely understand. The film suggests, and I agree with, that with each new convenience, we trade away bits of privacy, autonomy, and security. Today, this trade-off is everywhere. Voice assistants listening in your home, apps tracking your location constantly, social platforms curating what you see, influencing your opinions and behavior. The net doesn't demonize technology, but it urges people to reflect. Are we really aware of what we're sacrificing for this ease of use? I challenge you to reclaim agency in a world designed to smooth our lives, but potentially erode our freedoms. Beneath this thriller plot is a subtle commentary on power structures. The villains aren't just hackers. They're representatives of corporate and governmental powers wielding surveillance as a weapon. The net anticipates the post-9/11 surveillance state, corporate data monopolies, and the ethical dilemmas around monitoring and privacy. It highlights the lack of balance of power, where a few gatekeepers control vast networks that shape our lives. Yes, Angela's fight to reclaim her identity is a story of resistance, showing that individuals can push back, question authority, and demand transparency. This theme encourages viewers to see digital citizenship as an active political act, not a passive acceptance. The Net is a thriller, yes, but it's also a cautionary tale. It imagines a world where your entire life can be reshaped with a few keystrokes, where the systems we trust are easy to abuse, and where the very tools designed to connect us can also isolate, erase, and endanger us. 30 years later, the movie doesn't feel outdated. It's a forecast. Angela's story reminds us, in a digital world, knowing who controls your data may be the only power you have. Thanks for plugging into Celluloid Circuits. If the net teaches us anything, it's that the more dependent we are on digital reflection, the easier it is to lose control of it. Remember, technology isn't neutral. It's shaped by those who build it, and who wield it. As always, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. I would love to hear from you. And next time, if all goes well, we'll definitely have our first double feature and maybe even a surprise guest as well. Until then, remember, the future is only a reel away.